York. It became their favorite destination. And because the life in South, it was difficult, we know how they used to live as slaves, and so hoping to find some freedom, economic opportunities, and also the First World War, when major soldiers that were sent to America in First World War, majority of them were black Africans. Right? So they had the opportunity to see the world. They got educated, and so they moved to North. This is the place in New York City. So the Harlem Renaissance was initially called the New Negro Movement, but now it is known as Harlem Renaissance. Renaissance is what? It is enlightenment. Right? So this is the place. They had a cotton club. Now you can connect history with 20th century life in America. Cotton club. People working on the cotton fields now call it as a cotton club. They had a theatre there. They had their own restaurants. They started, one of the theatres is called Apollo Theatres. So this is a picture of Great Migration during 1920s. This is how the Afro-Americans, they started moving towards North. So when you read the 20th century American literature, you will come across instances where the hero is traveling from south to north. When they talk about south, it is the south of America and not from Latin America to North America. So that we need to understand. The Harlem Renaissance was a flowering of thought which expressed people. They expressed the paintings, music, dance, theatre, and literature. So, what are the themes that we see? So, the first time living outside the South, what was the life like? Earlier are diaries, autobiographies. They talk about their racial pride, and first time they have become conscious of their own identity. And credit goes to Abraham Lincoln also, who had changed the early part of the Constitution of America, where he talks about America as land for all people. There is no slave, there is no master. So for the first time, they started feeling like in a democratic country. This is a painting that I like the most. It is by Louis Jones. It was painted in 1932, and this painting captures the essence of the entire Harlem Renaissance. You can see what does this signify. You can see the painting, right? What does this signify? My cursor. Sorry? Black Americans, but what is this? Egypt or Ethiopia, African culture, right? On the whole, you are right. Egypt, these are the pyramids. So the painting is called Ascent from Ethiopia. Ascent is moving upward, right? So it is an ascent from Ethiopia. But at the same time, Africa is at the root, at the base. They are not moving away from their root. It is not flying away from the nation. It is an ascent. So they are from Africa. These are the symbols of pyramids of Egypt. And Egypt is our earliest civilization. It is in history, in the popular history, that we call the Africans as, the one who are not very civilized in our terms, but they were the most civilized people, because we see pyramids, the African, Egyptian civilization. So from there, they started moving upward in search of hope, and moving through what? Through, you can see, what is this? What does this In which areas?
Music.
They are climbing in which areas? You can see what does this signify.
Music.
Urbanization is of course there, but you can see the script, some letters, drama, art, music. Remember Michael Jackson, Whitney Houston. These were the areas where they excelled because there was no competition, and majority of them were not educated. I mean, educated in the sense did not have formal education. So these were the fields that they could excel easily. So drama, and at the top is what? The little one on the globe. Oscar Award. Oscar. So acting, painting. You can see a painter. I don't know whether it is visible or not. This is a painter. This is the palette of a painter. This is about theatre. Music, someone playing piano. So wonderful. It captures the entire soul of Harlem Renaissance. This picture. What were the common themes in the literature? Of course, the black identity. They started talking about common heritage, exploring a new world. Now, because all of them, they had one common language, and that was American English, not English. It is American English. I'll show you an example of how African American English is different from English. And they started exploring the new world possibilities, resistance in the face of white prejudice. We know that till the later part of 20th century, they did not get acceptance till Martin Luther King Jr. He fought for the rights of these black Americans. And one of the common themes is hope. Now they have democratic environment for their development, for their growth. So the writers are, the finest writers are Claude McKay and Langston Hughes, Zoe Huston. I'm not reading all this because, but Langston Hughes, he was a poet who had influenced many Americans, including Martin Luther King when he gave his historic speech, I Dream America. So, from Langston Hughes' poem, The Dream Dictator, so that he was a major influence over black writers. Now, this is the example of one of the early writings during Harlem Renaissance. The title of the story is Why Women Always Take the Advantage of Men. Why Women Always Take the Advantage of Men, published in 1935. Now, I hope it is visible. Is it visible? Would somebody like to read this? It is first two paragraphs. Shivin, can you come here? Would you like to read? I appreciate. Come here. You can speak from. You can read from here.
You see, in these very first days, God made a man and a woman and put them in a house together to live. But back in the days, the woman was just as strong as the man, and both of them did the same thing. They used to get to fussing about who going to do this and sometimes they had fly. But there was even balance and neither one could beat the other one. One day the man said to himself, be going to go see God and ask Him for I will more I will more stand so I can give the woman and make her mine. I am tired of the what thing is, so he went on up to God.
Thank you so much, Nasreen. So I understand that it is very difficult to read. Thank you, Nasreen. It was good attempt. You can see that. You see in the very first days, God made a man and a woman and put them in a house together to live. Way back in them days, the woman was also as strong as a man and both of them did the same things. They used to get to fussing about who is going to do this and that, and sometimes they would fight, but they was even balanced with the other one. See the violence. And one day the man said to himself, believe me, I'll go to God and I'll ask for a little strength. And then he goes to God and he says that, good morning, God Father. How are you, man? What are you doing around my throne so this morning? And the man says, I'm troubled in mind and nobody can ease my spirits excepting you. God said, put your plea in the right form and I'll hear an answer. Now, who could be the writer? I mean, is it written by a white man? No. It is written by a black person. This is the black African English. This is 1935. They used to speak this language. No grammar, right? I mean, influence of their mother tongue in speaking the English. And is it written by a man or a woman? It is written by a man. Is he educated or non-educated? Non-educated. It is written by a man who is non-educated. So, unfortunately, even the white Americans thought so. That this is written by a man, some uneducated man. It was written by Zora Neale Hurston. She was an anthropologist, a doctorate from Columbia University, and she used to write for her people. So this is the experiment that they were doing, or maybe away from the mainstream, there was some movement going on, and this is how they started developing a collective identity, through such writings. And this story is from Mules and Men. Mules, mules? Mules? What is a mule? Right, it is a breed of horse or a donkey, right? So mules, either a woman and a man, mules or Africans and the men, mules symbolizes both. So this is a feminist story. Feminism started developing during 1930s in America. And Zora Neale Hurston, so along with the black African plight, she was also talking about the problems of women. And it is very interesting to know that you see in the very first days, God made a man and a woman. And the God is, when you read the entire story, you will see that the God is always the white God. Right? And when the person and the man goes there and he says that I am troubled in mind, nobody can ease my spirit excepting you. And the God is like a patriarchal white man who says that put your plea in a form write your complaint and then come to me. This is how they were treated by white Americans. So it all gets reflected in the literature during their time. It's a very interesting story. It's available online. You can read it. That why women always take the advantage of men. It's a very, very satirical story. But this is just, I'm giving you examples to understand that how Harlem Renaissance had captured the spirit of people living in Europe, that is the black Americans. And these are some of the images. Since they were excelling in music, even in poetry, there is music. When you listen to the black African people, when Barack Obama, when he took vows as a president of America, Maya Angelou, she had recited her poetry. It's so musical, because music is there in the African blood. Blues, jazz, they were given to worldwide Africans, black Africans, Americans. So there were groups who were singing in their music called the blues. Blues signifies what? The color blue stands for what? Color blue, some melancholy, the sadness. So when you listen to blues, it's very soft music. And jazz, it's all 16-beat, heavy metal guitar. So those two extremes, the extremes of the life that they were experiencing. So even in music, and with this came the theatre. So we talked about novels, we talked about American mainstream poetry by E. Cummings and Harlem poetry. Now we come to modern theatre. So the first was the Provincetown Players, and it was established in 1915. And we know that Eugene O'Neill, one of the tallest figures of American theatre, he was there. He started the movement. There was also a government-sponsored project called the Federal Theatre Project. And the years between 1929 and 1935 are called the years of Great Depression. That is the economic depression that America faced after the first, as an impact of the First World War. And there was also the American group theatre. So people used to get together and they started having their own activities in their own way. This is a picture where on the ladder is Eugene O'Neill. He is putting up his own set for the play. This is Eugene O'Neill. He is working with a group. So it was very, very immature when it came to theatre, but the drama, the script of the drama that you read is very mature. Majority of the plays are tragedy. Tragedy of modern man, the absurdity of life. Eugene O'Neill has written The Hayliade, the Desire Under the Elms, Emperor Jones. These are his very well-known tragedies, the tragedy of a modern man. So they used to set up their own sets, and they had started on their own their little theatre called the Provincetown Theatre. And so here I would like to summarize with this modern age, that is from 1900 to 1945. So we had these writers, I have talked about some of these writers already, so I am not repeating. What were the major features? Leave the American dream, because immigrants had entered into the land with the dream. In pursuit of the American dream, admiration for America is a promised land, there was optimism, importance of the individual, but at the same time, the scenario, the political, economic scenario, that did not. This is bald eagle is the national bird of America, and in the American passport you will find this. Right? So, for them, live maybe land would provide them with opportunities, but the texts were different. Now we turn to postmodernism. Some people call it a break from modernism. For some critics, it is the continuity of the modernism. Postmodernism is viewed by the critics with two different perspectives. One is as a continuity, another is as a break from the traditional, the modernist attitude. So this is what I have taken from your syllabus of 314, which says that historical context is Korean War in 1950s, Vietnam War, Gulf Wars, dominance of media and ICT. You see this in your paper, right? Fusion writings, mix of fantasy with non-fiction, literature of ethic, feminist and blue-collar issues, golden age of Broadway theatre, and diversity of voices. Now just going further in the detail, post-Second World War, America started prospering relative to other countries, and so their prosperity gave some sort of stability. Up till now, the classics that preach the values, but now media culture started interpreting the values in America. Now I would like to draw your attention to values and ethics. Values given by tradition. Like when you go to work, it is you work with honesty, with commitment, with devotion. These are the moral values. But reaching at the workplace on time, punctuality, those are the ethics. And with technology, the ethics started changing. Men started, racing around with technology, and media started preaching the values. There was a lot of disillusionment even after Second World War. There was resistance to easily recognizable themes or models in a story because the world was changing fast. So the morals which were available years back, they were not applicable to the culture which was controlled by technology. So there is something called techno-ethics. They were missing in the earlier part of American history. So they insisted that values are not permanent but only local or historical. Everything became so temporary. Like breaking news, it becomes so temporary. This happened after a few minutes, a new headline comes, life changes. Same with the value system. So these were the forces with which the common people started racing against. What were the styles? So mixing of fantasy with non-fiction. No heroes. Concern with individual in isolation, social issues as writers aligned with feminist and ethnic groups. Metafiction. What is metafiction? You all are aware of metafiction. Metafiction is, the character starts talking to the reader. Like, if I am reading a book and 20 pages are left, some character in the book would tell me that, okay, go fast, only 20 pages are left, So the character starts interacting with the reader. That is called metafiction. If you look at the children's stories, there are characters who would tell the children, okay, now turn the page. That is a metafiction. So metafiction started appearing on the scene. Magic realism. Magic realism is dreamland, fantasy, imagination. And writers started writing in present tense instead of talking about their experiences, their parents' experiences and all that. Without going into past. So important works are Arthur Miller's The Death of a Salesman and Crucible in the theatre. Feminist and social poets were like Sylvia Plath, Adrian Rich, Anne Sexton, Emily Baraka, Toni Morrison, Alice Walker. All of you study these writers. J.D. Salinger's Catcher in the Rye. I suggest that please read this book. Many of you must have read this, Catcher in the Rye. It's a wonderful book for the teenagers. And it is written from the perspective of the teenager. Like, right now many of you must be thinking that what boring lecture is going on, It's the same language, the entire book has been written. So, read Catcher in the Rye, is available online. Then there was a group of poets called Beat Poets, Kerouac, Barrow and Allen Ginsberg. Allen Ginsberg was a leader of, I come to that. Cases One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest is a very well-known novel. Saul Bellows, Herzog Saul Bellow got Nobel Prize in 1976 for his book Herzog, which is epistolary as well as stream of consciousness novel. George Orwell's 1984 and the Animal Farm, allegories, political allegories, and George Orwell in 1948, he wrote 1984. It got published in 1949 when he says that the Big Brother is watching you. In 1948, George Orwell is telling the world that the Big Brother, who is the Big Brother? America is watching you. As I said, send me a message right now, America is watching us. Right? So Big Brother is watching you, 70, 80 years. These are the writers who could predict the future. So they professed about the world in 21st century. Maya Angelou's beautiful autobiography, I Know Why the Cage Bird Sings. So these are the milestone works that you find in the later part of 20th century. Beat Generation, the one movement that took place along with this postmodernist movement, like Harlem Renaissance. It was a group of poets, and they called themselves as a beat. They were the beating hearts of America. So they rejected the mainstream American values. They were interested in the Eastern spirituality. Now the beauty of American literary history is that history repeats itself, that the movement. So I talked about transcendentalism, right? Those transcendental poets, they were interested in Eastern philosophy. Again, after 100 years, there is a group who is interested in Eastern philosophy. Allen Ginsberg used to come to India, stay somewhere in Varanasi, Haridwar, and in their poetry you will find many references to Indian classics. So there is use of rhythm, repetition, musical elements. Again, being like imagery, that is magic realism is there, abstract symbols in the writing. So Beat Generation also influenced to some extent the readers of America, and the playwrights theatre movement. There were two main characters, two main playwrights, Tennessee Williams and Arthur Miller, and off-Broadway movement started in America, and then it was taken over by Hollywood in the later part of 20th century. This is Tennessee Williams, and this is after the first show of The Glass Menagerie. He was presented with a cake with this book cover. It was made written The Glass Menagerie. It is a play about magic realism, The Glass Menagerie, and this is Arthur Miller. Death of a Salesman, All My Sons. They are the pioneers of modern tragedy. When Aristotle said that tragedy happens of the people, the hero, the protagonist, who has fallen from prosperity, these people say that even tragedy can happen to a common man. So they are the torchbearers of new literature in the postmodern times. And there was also simultaneously rise of science fiction. Isaac Asimov, Arthur C. Clarke, and Isaac Asimov's I, Robot. written around 1950. So then in 60s and 70s we see Ursula K. Le Guin, Philip Dick, and based on their works like of Asimov and Ursula K. Le Guin in Star Wars, The Matrix, Star Trek, that influenced the entire generation of sci-fi, right? So just to give you the background of what I talked about, so importance and impact of this era in American literary history is like modernism, the lost generation, the Harlem Renaissance, the Great Generation, the postmodernism, we have talked about it, and new narrative techniques and style that broke with traditional forms. Now you remember how E.E. Cummings started writing, or Zora Neale. Now you know with the examples that how they get away from the traditional way of writing. So remember this when you write about 20th century modernism, urban Renaissance, regeneration, postmodernism. The characteristics are experimentation with form and style, focus on the individual experience, rejection of conventional norms, exploration of complexity of American society, representation of diverse voices. So American, Afro-American, Jew, Indian American, now you have, with globalization, there are people with multiple citizenship. So we have Jhumpa Lahiri, with Indian origin, getting Pulitzer Prize. So emphasis on language and style and diversity, of course. So these are the characteristics of the 20th century American literature. So thank you very much for listening to me patiently, and I would like to end with Mark Twain's quote, which I like, is that continuous improvement is better than immediate perfection. You know, continually improve yourself by reading literature. So thank you very much for listening to me patiently. I have just given you an overview. Right? If you have any questions, you can ask me.
The session is open for questions answers.
Can you read Mark Twain? Any of you have read Mark Twain? Yes? Right. Read this Tom Sawyer, Adventures of Tom Sawyer, Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, written for young people. These are the writers with universal appeal. No time, no space, no place constraint their writing, right? Is there any question? No question? More informative?
You explained them quite clearly that they did have a outcome. Yes, yes. Yes. If the students have a question, come up with all the questions. Whatever the questions you have, आप English, Gujarati, Hindi किसी भी language में आप question पूछ सकते हो. American literature के related पूरा मैम ने एकदम बड़ी अच्छी तरह से आप लोगों को explain किया, right? So I wish that you ask questions because curiosity तो होनी चाहिए, मैं ऐसा समझता हूँ सभी students. और कुछ हाँ क्या होगा?
Of course, a very nice question. That Theatre of Absurd had deep impact Samuel Beckett a lot, that is Waiting for Godot, that if you read on Google, I mean if you see the pages on Google, which are not authentic enough, they say that Samuel Beckett belonged to American history, to American absurdist history. So along with other writers, theatre, other dramatists, Samuel Beckett is with Eugene O'Neill or with Arthur Miller, but that was the impact of absurd plays. And I think it was across the world that absurd plays had captured the attention of people, because those countries that were involved in the war and the sensitive people, they could feel that absurdity of death, of victimization, and as I said, that somebody would decide something and one day, like someone like Hitler would, go for mass massacre, and it was absolutely absurd. There was no reason. So that those people who were, those countries that were, I think the largest number of countries were involved during the First World War and the Second World War. You know that around 63,000 Indians were also sent for war. So fortunately, we never had that in India. So difficult for us to understand the absurdity, but the theatres that flourished in America, off-Broadway theatre, the experimental theatre, so absurd plays were very popular during those days. I hope I have answered your question. From students actually, which I am just rephrasing. Rucha, as we did, we studied British literature and then we had American literature. But the focus is, the autobiography focus is on British literature. Students they want clear cut, they want to understand how do they differ? What is the basic difference? British and American literature. It's very much clear from your presentation how very different. So the what they are suggesting is that since Britain had the royal presence, it was ruled by monarchy, and the Americans did not have any presence of that. So focus on common, on individual, and the Britain were royal. Now they take out and you have already answered that America is the land of people. We the people, we are the land of the people. So it is a democracy right from its inception. From the first day, there is democracy. There is no monarchy, and there are no emperors. So they have a very different rule. It's a presidential rule, and which is the president is decided by people, by common people, right? Unlike us, people vote for the president directly. So the people have their democratic rights. So democracy is there in their spirit, and therefore the literature that we get is very different from the British literature. And also the circumstances are different on both the lands. In England, circumstances, even today, they are different. In America, America is more into technology, so the life experiences are different. So that gets reflected in their literature. And I know that Gujarat University is teaching American literature since long time, and I would like to remember my teacher, Dr. Amina Amin, who used to teach us American literature long back, 30 years back. So we know that it is a part of curricula over a long time, and we need to understand the country with which we are dealing every day. That is what I said in the beginning. That what do we know about America? We know about America from Hollywood movies only, or maybe from social media, but it's very different. The undercurrents are very different from the European countries, from other Asian countries. So, and America, it emerged as independent nation by breaking away from Europe, from England, from monarchy. So, for 100 years they tried to be different from. So it is absolute, I mean, of course it is different from the English literature. As I said, that the Romantics, they are a Indian way of thinking, Indian perspectives. So this is how America or American literature has developed over a period of time. I hope it is clear. Right. So, as far as my understanding goes, the British people, wherever they went, they made people of that land as their slaves, right? So, and for using their biodiversity, their natural resources, including their skills. So wherever they went, here they brought people from some other land to America. So there is a difference between the slavery. They were brought as slaves to work on fields, but the fields were owned by the white Americans. So there is a difference between becoming a slave in your own nation or on your own land and going as a slave on other land. So that is the difference that I see. Otherwise, the treatment was the same. Right? Master is a master, master is of the land.
So, if there is no more question, we will go for the feedback slide. It was a visual treatment, and you also satisfactorily answer the queries raised by the students and teachers. I would like to request a few one or two students to give feedback for today's lecture. I invite you come please very quickly. Those are the English speakers to be mind. But come, yes.
Good morning. My name is Utsavariya, science student. Thank you, John, for giving such an informative session and consistently bringing us with general information. And to be a student, you always want an interactive session. And you made it smoothly and selflessly. Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Rashmi and entire department for hosting such series lectures. Thank you.
Good morning, all of you. My name is Pratiksha Mudalkar, Sem 6 student. First of all, I would like to thank all professors for arranging this beautiful lecture series. And today's lecture was very interesting. Ma'am, you did it very well. And you discussed all the things in very detail. And it is very useful for us and knowledgeable thing. And one thing I mentioned here that I have less knowledge on in this syllabus also. But after this lecture, it is very good knowledge for me. And thank you for this, ma'am. And thank you so much for wonderful lecture.
Hello everyone. Thank you ma'am for this lecture. Actually I am a student of Hindi literature, so I don't know anything about American literature or English literature. When it comes to English literature, I know only names John Keats, William Shakespeare or William Wordsworth. That's it. So it was very informative for me, and thank you so much for this event. Thank you so much.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brahmbhatt. I am in City Jyotsna College, and first of all, I want to thank you, Nitish sir, for giving your words on this English GUETA accessories. And it is like a weapon. Why it is weapon? When I know that in SEM 5, when I was so fair on my student phase. At the day of essay paper, just because everyone have a fair, just because just because essays are too long, and everyone have fair, and they're thinking that how can we remain all these essays very easily and very quickly? How can we write all these essays in exam in this short period of time? And that's why it's happened, and it demonstrated that it will help us current Sem 6 students and also the juniors also. And I want to special thanks to English GUETA team, and also big thanks to Nitish that's conducting this accessories program at our college campus, and you all are under our hearts. So, big thank you and thank you.
Ritika, circular.
So, thank you very much for your feedback. These feedbacks always motivate us, right? So, a student's feedback for teachers is nothing less than God's gift. So, we always welcome such gifts. And two, we can see the right hand, left hand of GUETA, Rucha ma'am and Chitra ma'am, both of them are there. Whenever I need anything, any content, they are always there. Of course, there is a team of almost 20-30 English teachers who are working very hard, taking nothing from it. But just to, what do you say, selfless service to the students. So, give a huge round of applause. Thank you, and I'd like to request Krishna for your friends.
Ma'am, what do I say about your presentation? You brought us on the ship of Mayflower. It was almost कि भाई ship पे हम बैठे हैं, ठीक है ना, जहाँ से ये immigrants आए यूरोप से and they captured the land of America. So you made us almost visit on the ship, and we landed there, and you just gave a tour of the whole history, and we came to see how America has evolved, how it has come to be a nation, and how literature has played such a big role in it, with all the visuals and your continuous guidance, guiding us there to see what to see, and at the same time your explanations, with keeping in mind that this is not just GPA, this is part of an exam answer, because they are supposed to write it in exam, isn't it? So, wonderful, wonderful, Jana. Very lucid
and very helpful, and not only for the students but we teachers also. Quick revision is always welcome on any topic, any subject. That's what you gave it to teachers. A quick recap of what we already know, but you never go back to what you already know. So that's the point in welcoming teachers to talk to, not only students but refreshing the teachers as well. So for teachers, it's almost a refresher course. It's almost a refresher course. And Chitra ma'am ne પણ એ જ કર્યું એમના લેક્ચરમાં પણ. તો ટીચર્સ માટે તો એ refresher course જ થઈ જાય છે. Thank you so much, so much. તમે તો પહેલા પણ આવ્યા છો. And once again, you all have become Chitra ma'am તમે team છે. We always look forward to having the team with us. So, Rucha ma'am, keep coming. The students love to be with you, to listen to you. Thank you so much. She was very busy. She had other commitments the day before yesterday. And that's why she had to change the schedule also, we know that. In spite of all that, she manages to come and prepare the material for us. She doesn't make excuses like you. Madam, you ho gaya tha, isliye assignment nahi leke aaye. She is there on time. In spite of all the busy schedules, she is there on time, ready with the material and presenting it to us. So, thank you so much. Keep coming. Thank you so much.